The New York Times reported a student killed for a $70 pair of Nike shoes. Another student attacked for his expensive jacket. I've seen see-through clothing, racially tinged t-shirts, and tight low-rise jeans on the students at schools. I do not want my 11-year-old son exposed to these types of incidents. I do not want my 11-year-old son exposed to these types of clothing. Do you want your children to be exposed? Well, what can we do to protect our children from such? Many schools across the United States have taken a stand against this by implementing a school dress code policy. All schools across our country should implement a dress code policy to increase school safety, enhance academic performance, and lessen peer pressure. Let's first look at how student uniforms can lead to a safer school. The use of school uniforms has shown to increase school safety in school systems. A case study of the effects on school uniforms in Long Beach, California, which appeared in the Psychology Today magazine, reported that crime dropped by 91%, school suspensions went down by 90%, sex offenses dropped 96%, and incidents of vandalism were reduced 69%. These are some very telling statistics. I have an 11-year-old son in the 6th grade, and he's required to wear school uniforms. I interviewed his principal, Mrs. Connie Bobbitt, regarding her ideas and thoughts about the school dress code policy. Now, she's the longest tenured middle school principal in our county, and she was on the uniform development team for our county school system as well. And she believes the incident rate of violence and theft has drastically been reduced since the implementation of school uniforms. Mrs. Bobbitt sees a different school body on the free days. Free days are the days where school kids can wear pretty much what they like within boundaries. The students seem much more rambunctious on those days. More students are sent to the office for disciplinary action. Additionally, Mrs. Bobbitt notices a lot more skin from the female school students on those days. Well, in addition to the decrease of violence and theft, gang colors are prevented by uniform use. Many gangs identify themselves by the color of their clothing or the types of clothing they wear. The National Gang Center reports the adoption of a school-wide uniform policy is a reasonable way to provide some protection for students. A required uniform may protect students from being associated with any particular gang. Moreover, by requiring school-wide uniforms, teachers and administrators may not need to occupy much of their time learning the subtleties of gang regalia. School uniforms are also valuable in identifying to school authorities who doesn't belong on the campus. Those not wearing uniforms, they tend to stand out a lot more against a background of people wearing uniforms. And this is very important as schools deal with more stringent security measures than they ever have before in the past. So with students feeling more secure in their schools, they're able to concentrate now more on academics. Academic performance. It's increased in schools that require the wearing of school uniforms. Uniformed students are more prone to concentrate on their schoolwork than on what their fellow students are wearing. Clothing of the type that I mentioned earlier distracts from the students performing their very best. Students are instilled with a sense of discipline by wearing uniforms. They're more prone to sit upright in their chairs, pay more attention to the instruction, and act more professional. Not only is this advantageous to the student now, but it prepares for a better future for them as well. Believe it or not, students that wear uniforms are more eager to go to school. Getting dressed in the morning is so much easier because the decision what to wear that day is already made for you. Now, before my son had to wear uniforms, mornings were very hectic around my house. He'd go to the closet, stand there, and wait for that just right outfit to jump off the hanger onto his body. Well, students are proud of how the uniform looks on them now, too, and as a whole, that increases school spirit. Now that I've shown you how uniformed students tend to focus more on academics in school, how is peer pressure affected? Uniform dress codes result in less peer pressure for students. Flashy brand names such as DKNY, Tommy Hilfiger, and Guess, they're moved by using school uniforms. Many kids are more occupied with what's on their clothing than they are what's in their books. A student's popularity is unfortunately based on the names on their clothing. And what sense does it make for a child's self-worth to be judged by other people by looking at their outer garments. And what if that child's wearing the very best that he or she has? And uniforms level the playing surface, the playing field, for the entire student population, regardless of their socioeconomic status. Lower income families do not have to pay inflated prices for those brand name clothes. To illustrate my point, I have purchased uniform pants for $13 and shirts for $8 at Walmart for my son for school. With uniforms being only worn at school, purchases will be less frequently made with the clothes that have to be worn at school and away from school. Now, uniforms allow students' individuality and the creativity to come from within instead of what's on their outside. Their uniqueness and the creativity are better expressed in art and music and academics. That's where the real person comes from. So as you can clearly see, parents, students, and the school administration, they've got a lot to be concerned about. I do not want my son to be a victim of robbery, assault, or harassment. I do not want my son to be a statistic. What about your kids? By schools mandating the use of a uniform dress code, our children can feel much safer while they're at school. They can concentrate more on their schoolwork and better grades and not be worried about peer pressure. The cost of a school uniform code seems very insignificant when compared to the benefits resulting from their use.